What's that? I think no.
Didn't she say she wasn't going to be here any last time?
All right, and it's 8 o'clock. Are we ready with Tech? Calling to order the July meeting of the Fairport Municipal Commission. Could we have the roll call?
Commissioner Jordan?
Present.
Commissioner Dulagash? Commissioner Keefe?
Present.
Commissioner Schlava?
Here.
Chairperson Stuckey?
Here, thank you. Welcome to our visitors. Would anyone care to introduce yourself, or do you have anything to share?
Thanks. Yeah, I guess I wondered if I could have permission just to give you this printout from the Fairport Municipal website.
Okay. Thank you.
So the reason I'm handing it to you is because it's a section of the frequently asked questions portion of the site, and I know I've mentioned this before, but in one of the answers to one of the questions about, I think it's why we have to buy additional power, in larger type than everything else in that section is a recommendation that people switch to natural gas and to keep the prices down. So I think I mentioned this before. I don't think it's responsible to have that given the climate crisis that we're in, that we're recommending people to use fossil fuels. We're going to hit another 90-degree stretch, short one here. We're in the second major stretch in Europe right now. Thousands of people have died as a result of high temperatures. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. We shouldn't be recommending it. And I guess I just want to emphasize that, I belong to a group that is really trying to help people figure out ways to switch off of their fossil fuel burning. And the number one response we get from local residents is, aren't we running out of electricity? And that answer just stops the conversation. And I guess, again, I'm just here to ask you for a plan for how we're going to help people stop using fossil fuels. Just as an example, RG&E has, which is also just a distribution company, right, has a incentive to have people charge their EVs at off-peak hours. So if we're concerned about the peaking and the costs that that's going to bring to our customers, we need to have strategies for reducing that peak. So the fact that RG&E already has that program in effect, and Fairport Electric has probably the largest concentration, actually it does pretty much have the largest concentration of EVs in the state, we should have a plan. So I'm just here again asking you to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I think we've spoken briefly about this comment and needing to update this for greater context of, how this reads. So we'll talk some more about that. Okay. And as we continue talking about how to use incentive dollars and how our rates are set up, we can certainly revisit the on and off peak approach as well. Thank you. Good ideas. All right. Anyone else? All good? Okay, thank you. Moving to unfinished business. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes from the June 8 meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, concerns? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
I have to recuse myself because I was absent.
Okay, so we have 3, so I think we're good. Thank you. Moving to new business. Luke, could we have an overview of the APA annual conference?
Luke, we're going to ask you to step up to the podium just so it's on the microphone. So we're lucky that,
Yes.
as staff members volunteer for board positions and things. Luke, stepped up about a year ago for the Municipal Electric Board. As part of that 5-year commitment, they do go to the APPA annual conference. It was in Boston this year, so they had a few of them go over. And Luke was lucky enough to attend, and I asked him to come back and give us a little presentation.
Yeah, so like Matt said, I was lucky enough to be able to go to this conference and to be on that executive committee and represent Fairport. It's kind of a little bit new thing in my career. Most of my career has been focused on the technical aspects, of the electric industry, but I'm getting a lot out of being on that committee, and I appreciate it. So the conference was just like a meeting of public utilities from all over the country. And one of the things that I definitely you can see is that we're all facing the same challenges, whether it's utilities with 400 customers or 3 million. There are public utilities that have that many customers. So, but it was kind of a wide. The quality of the speakers at the conference was great. The first one was Anna Palmer. She started Punch Bowl News, which that was kind of exciting to me because I've actually been watching Punch Bowl for years. So that was pretty interesting. So she kind of talked about the insider DC politics and how it affects us as public utilities, basically through lobbying, policy, regulations, and all that kind of stuff. The next one thing I went to was kind of a federal legislative update. So the APPA has a lot of people who work in government relations, so they kind of reported on, current tax and finance changes. They're trying to reform permitting for utilities, the supply chain challenges we're seeing, and grid security. A discussion was also threat intelligence. So that ranges anywhere from cybersecurity to physical security to substations, that kind of thing. Let's see. We looked a lot at AI policy. Everybody talks about AI, and it's kind of it's kind of a divisive, not a well understood thing right now, but it can be very useful, especially in utilities for increasing efficiency, reporting, all that kind of stuff. Tuesday, we moved on to. We were lucky to have James Danley. He's the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Energy. So he was a pretty impressive guy. He's a Purple Heart and Bronze Star recipient. He's a Yale and Vanderbilt graduate, clerk for a federal judge, and at his young age, he's already high up in the DOE. So one of the big things that I got from him was the Trump administration's push for getting microreactors up to criticality quickly, and they've gotten 4 of them up in less than a year. So, load growth is a huge issue right now, and it was a major topic at this conference. And those microreactors can be a way to meet that need with electrification, with EVs, buildings, everything. Some more stuff about AI, how utilities are, small to large utilities are using AI in customer service, operations, etc. Kind of one of the last ones I went to was telling the public power story. And what we, as public utilities, we deliver safe, reliable electricity, and I think we all take pride in that, and we should. But kind of telling that story to the public can be a challenge sometimes. So that was just kind of a discussion of getting your message in line and all that kind of stuff, and how to be ambassadors for public power as employees. Like I said, I think my big takeaway was that we're all facing the same challenges, but I think we're also kind of uniquely positioned to meet those challenges. We take a lot of pride in working at public utilities. We don't have quarterly profit margins to meet. I feel like between things like the MEOA committee, the MEOA NIPA, and this APPA group, we all work together really well through mutual aid and just trying to meet the goals that we're challenged with. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my takeaway from it. Great. Yeah. And thanks for sending me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for going, and thanks
Okay.
for reporting back.
Yeah, I like
Appreciate it.
representing Fairport at these things, so yeah, it's great.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you. All right, next up, let's talk about weather.
So So we can talk about weather. So as you know, we came out of a winter that, good old-fashioned winter, and we've started right into a good old-fashioned summer. Thunderstorms and heat, and one of the things we all have to remember, we're a winter peaker. Fairport municipals are completely different than the rest of the state, investor owns. They're summer peakers. Their air conditioning load is higher than their heating load because the amount of electric heat that municipals have, back to that low cost, we've always been winter peakers. So we peaked about 106 megawatts, in the winter. We had 83 megawatts, in that run of, in July, with 95 degrees. And that's typical. The historic summer peak is 91 megawatts. The historic winter peak's 121 megawatts. So does that ever change that we become a summer peaker? I don't know. As things trend to more electrification, I think that stays pretty much the same. So we had some thunderstorms. We certainly had some big outages. On June 18th, we had wind and thunderstorms roll through, kind of hit the north end of our system. We had about 1,400 customers out at its peak. We worked well into the night. I think it was about 1:30 in the morning by the time we left. We did restore power to everybody. Longest outage was a little over 5 hours, which, unfortunately, we had a lot of stuff in the backyards. When we had these monster trees that, two guys can't wrap their arms around, that bring everything to the ground, we went through 4 transformers that night. So that's changing transformers. It's a lot of work. And it was hot, humid. These are typically after hours, after the guys have already put in a long day anyways, with the heat. July 1st, we had a issue up on 9 Mile Point Road. We had a direct lightning strike, which is unusual. It took everything to the ground. We worked a little after 2:30 in the morning to restore power to everybody. In the process of where that lightning hit was the start of an underground, which actually feeds underground almost all the way out to Baird Road. So it's almost a mile of underground. We restored power on the overhead and realized we also had a bad underground. So, at 1 o'clock in the morning, you start, investigating what's wrong on the underground. So we were able to isolate the bad piece. We just got that fixed. There was actually 2 faults on that the lightning had damaged. So it took us about a week to restore that. That is back to normal now. So it's been busy. But one of the things that I certainly heard loud and clear, is, and we're small. I mean, we're not RG&E. So I want to talk about this for a little bit, that, we can see the pictures on Facebook of 9 Mile Point Road. We have 12,470 volts burning on the ground. It's like an arc welder. My only priority at that point when those things happen is to get that isolated and that scene made safe. It's on a sidewalk. People, I don't understand why they have the curiosity that they think they want to do selfies in front of it and everything else. It's a different world now. So my one and only priority is to isolate that and make that safe. We had a crew already in. Fire department had a garage fire on Parse Ave, so they were already in. So I was able to get them up there, open some switches, isolate it, get some grounds on it, start getting other people in, and start to come up with a game plan. We knew it was going to be a long duration. We had about 800 feet of wire, 3 phases, so you got about 2,400 feet of wire to put up in the air to repair. Once I get those things done, then I can certainly start to get on Everbridge and post a notice with a parent. I said we should have power restored about 1 o'clock. Not knowing the underground was bad, it was 1:05, so I didn't hit it too bad. At 9 o'clock. But it's just, we're a small staff. I mean, we had everyone that was available in that night. We worked about 2:30. And we all crawled back out of bed at 5 o'clock and came back to work and did it all over again the next day. This team has certainly been, it's an old-fashioned summer. I can remember doing these things, the undergrounds that we've had going bad. These are typical. Saturday morning, we were back out. We had problems over on Linden and 31F, with a connection. Most likely an old lightning strike. They finally decided to go belly up, that morning. As we go forward, what I would love to have an outage management system like RG&E. As we've looked at these for the last few years, an all-in price by the time we do the software you need a staff person to run this. You know, you're approaching $400,000 to $500,000 to an outage management system to have a fancy map on our webpage that says this area is out. And you know, restoration times take a person. There is no AI that's going to know what's down on the ground and come up with a game plan. That's a person. That's a staff person that's dedicated to that. You know, so this is real money. Do we spend that kind of money to build a system? We've demoed 4 or 5 different ones. They're wonderful. But do we spend that kind of money for something that, yeah, it does happen. I understand we have outages, and it does affect people. But, you know, we talk about low cost. You know, if we continue to improve on technology and spend that kind of money, our rates will go up. That will be built into the next rate case, and that will be part of why rates would go up. It has to. You know, the software is one cost, and then you have a person on staff, and you know, they certainly do other things, but you know, during storms, yeah, we can certainly have a social media person. You know, I responded to a lot of complaints that night, middle of the outage. You know, once I got the crews working and I could do that, I was happy. I'm happy to send an email to people and try to explain. You know, Everbridge, we've been pushing for years. It's been on our website for years, but we have people that still haven't signed up for it. You know, and then they signed up for it after the outage and want to know why they didn't get the message. It doesn't go backwards; it goes forward. You know, and you try to explain these things. You know, Mother Nature sometimes is going to affect us. You will have outages. I mean, there's no way we can guarantee that they never will have an outage. But people want a response within 20 minutes. My one and only priority is safety at that point. I mean, we had energized wires laying on the ground. You know, we got there before the fire department did. I was lucky to have that crew on site. I got a hold of them right away. I said, you need to go there right now. Here's the switch, open it up, and we need to do these things. You know, and it does take a team, but it's, you know, so as we go forward, you know, as we start to budget things, you know, do we get an outage management system? I'd love to. I'd love to find a hybrid system that maybe costs less. It has to tie in with your meter system, it has to tie in with your software, and it has to tie into your website. And then you have to have a person that basically spends the time to run all of that. So, you know, can we be better? You know, we certainly can, but it takes time and money to be better in those places.
So that kind of system, what would that look like to the customer? What kind of information would that provide?
You know, it would be very similar if you ever looked at the RG&E outage page. You have a map of our system.
Okay.
We would have a highlighted block that we know this area is out. You know, as a crew assigned, typically what happened, they'll color out a block and then they'll say a crew's assigned. And then eventually you may see a restoration time. You know, and this is once people get to the site and realize what's wrong.
Yeah.
And then we can start to make a game plan.
What all is broken.
You know, how long it's going to take, and then we can update those things. You know, so can we do those things? Yes. But do we spend the money? You know, like, so we're continuing to look. You know, we have weekly meetings. You know, second floor staff. I mean, we meet on the OMS systems and the, you know, there's a lot of them out there. You know, but how do they have to interact with the Landis and Gear system we have? They have to interact with the Meridian system and the Futura mapping system. They all have to work with that. So that's outages in a nutshell.
Yes. One thing I wonder, back long ago, right, when we didn't have the smarter meters, people needed to call in their outage to make sure that you knew about it, right? Now the meters communicate that. So that doesn't need to happen, but do people know that?
So, you know, we still like a phone call because
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, a person's able to say, hey, the tree fell down in my backyard.
Yeah.
Our metering system does not tell us that.
Okay.
You know, and we can talk about the phone system. You know, we have 23 incoming lines. We have one person that answers the phone. We certainly bring people in, you know, during these large outages to try to answer the phone. But, you know, a phone call is on the average between 30 and 60 seconds. You know, for us to get them on the phone, where are you? Yep, we're aware of the outage. Hey, you have a tree. Let us document that. Can we get a phone number? But if there's 23 incoming lines and a person answers one, lines 2 through 23 get an automated message. We're receiving we have a large outage. We're receiving high call volume. You know, please stay on the line if you can help us diagnose this outage. But the 24th call is going to get a busy signal.
Yep.
You only have so many incoming lines. I mean, we could. You know, we had over 1,000 customers out in one of those storms. We need over 1,000 phone lines that you'd pay for monthly for them to get a message. So there's things that we can try to do with the outage management system, kind of ties in, that's another thing we need to tie it in with is Everbridge. So can people start to get texts so they don't? We would love to have that system. It's just how do we spend the money wisely?
Yeah. So something to continue looking at.
We will. We did budget, an
Yeah.
amount this year. Unfortunately, it was not the amount that, once we realized the integration involved between the mapping, the billing system, Everbridge, and everything else, and the meters, there's a lot to it. And unfortunately, the average public power utility in the country is about 2,400 customers. We're actually ranked in with the largest, which have over 1 million customers, because there's fewer of us with 18,000 customers than there are of the ones that are average. If this was a system of 2,500 meters, that system's a lot easier. When you have a system our size, we're more like at RG&E, but we don't have the funding like RG&E either.
Yeah.
They've spent millions on their outage management system. They also have
Because at that scale,
450
you have to.
It's a
also.
scale,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
They have 450,000 customers. So like I said, there's a difference. We try to, mimic them at some points, but other things we're certainly better, and certain things, we're behind a little bit.
Yeah, and kind of a unique size range then.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Cool.
So, guys have worked a lot. It's, our typical payroll week is 80 hours. It's 2 40-hour weeks. I had employees that had over 160 hours in the payroll. You think about that. Over 160 hours, they were away from their families, they worked, nights, lack of sleep, and it was hot.
Yeah.
The guys are dragging.
Well, and it's in the dark. It's
In the dark.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, thunderstorms don't come at noon.
No.
Or at 10 o'clock in the morning. They come in the evening, and then you work well into the night. And people, we were working on 9 Mile Point Road, and you would think with trucks and flaggers, people would slow down. Somebody certainly watches out for us, because the amount of people that go by us at 60 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour zone at 11 o'clock at night is mind-boggling. Eventually, we will just start closing the road like everybody else does. You're gonna pull up, there's gonna be a road closed sign, and we're gonna work safe. You can't, as much as you wanna try to help the public and keep the roads open, if they don't wanna cooperate and give you a little room and slow down, my employee safety is key. I'm gonna make sure of that.
Agreed.
Matt, kudos to everybody working, and I think you're 100% right. During these events, right, it's, you have to manage the problem at hand. These are acute, critical incidents, and safety is paramount. So for somebody who's used the RG&E outage map, in my professional career for 20 plus years, I would say it offers little value at the end of the day. Do we always want to build a better mousetrap? Yes. And I think probably after every one of these events, we do some sort of after action and say, okay, what can we do better, right? I think that's just what we like to do, right? 100%. We want to be as responsive as we can. We want to be as safe as we can be. Some of these events are a little more challenging than others depending on the circumstances, but this is down and dirty work out on the street. And I don't know that people think that you just flip a light switch or click a button on a computer. This is anything but that. And so please express, I think I can speak for the entire group up here, our appreciation for their hard work over the last month. So thank you.
Appreciate that, and I'll make sure they hear it.
You certainly, definitely appreciate all the hard work, Matt, and to the team. I know, especially, I think one of those outages was during the heat advisory, so, a lot of hard work going there, so appreciate it.
Yep, and I saw trucks out and about that night, on the first anyway, as I was walking down the street, so I definitely appreciate it. I know they're hard at work, and it's not easy.
We have a great team. They want to do the right thing, but yeah, they're tired right now. We could, like to get through this heat. Maybe a week of no heat would be okay.
Yeah. Well, good luck, because I think that's not this week. So
No,
maybe
not the next couple of days for sure.
So just for the commission, is this something you guys would like to maybe see some proposals and talk about in the future about some outage management systems and things of that nature? Just so we know where you guys are at and what your expectations are.
I think to understand the impacts, I think you mentioned high level. Clearly, we've heard from at least a couple people that they have concerns about that, so it'd just be good to make sure that we are following up on that and
Okay.
understand the impacts of it.
Sure.
That doesn't mean it's the
No,
best
I
fit
get
for
it.
us right now.
Yeah. Just so we know what we're working.
We'll shoot for
working on.
August. I mean, I can't guarantee that, because like I said, we have a couple demos planned, and everyone's busy.
Yeah.
I will try for August. If not, September, we'll definitely have some type of presentation.
And I think
Something
just
for
in
you.
general, just from my perspective, would be more of just our response during high call volume or, larger scale outage type events. Like, again, how do we, what are the thresholds for standing up the entire team, the entire system beyond mutual aid, whatever? How can we support the overall effort, as a community? Is there anything that we're missing? Just something, again, a good, strong after action or review of those time periods. We always used to joke, I remember during the ice storm of 91 at the firehouse, we had like the Village of Fairport disaster plan and like a 3-ring binder. Well, for that entire, 2-week period, nobody even took that off the shelf, right? It was like, we were in a whole nother level of impact. So I think there's some value in just kind of taking a look at where we are today. Again, we're a small shop, right? We do a hell of a job, period, at the end of the day. But there's always opportunities to make some improvements, so.
Agreed.
Those are my 2 cents on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Further questions? All right, thank you. Next up, update on the customer service offering staffing.
Yes, so we wanted to take a minute and introduce Ryan Mendez. He's our new billing manager. We also, this summer, brought in a intern, Lindsay Zuber, who's helping out in our office while we take some time to figure out what our needs are in that billing office as Ryan gets settled. So both of them have done great so far. Ryan's been here for about 2 weeks, and again, Lindsay's been here for about a month. So.
Welcome. All right, next, could we review the financials?
So we have the May 2026 draft financials. I just want to put it out there again. This is the end of the fiscal year. So these are draft until our audit is complete in August. 2 of the things that will change, just so everyone's transparent with this, we're waiting on the New York State pension updates to account for our portion of the New York State pension, as well as the actuarial report related to our other post-employment benefits. Those are 2 changes that we generally are waiting on towards the end of the year. We're expecting both to come in right around the same time as the audit. So we'll have updates to those probably in September, I'm guessing, for those reports, where we'll be able to provide a final draft of that. That said, for May, as expected, we did have a bit of a loss for the month of May that was offset by April, where we had a little bit of an income for that month. So we ended the fiscal year with about $1.7 million in return, but most of that, or that will be invested back into the plant. That was where we invest into the plant and then we depreciate it over the life of the plant investments. So we're trying to maintain sustainability of the plant, but also continuing continued investments to ensure the sustainability. In terms of June, for our cash flow, we generally see our highest cash flow point at the end of May. So it was very typical that we saw a reduction in the cash flow for June because we're just working from May downward a little bit. And the good news is that since we've implemented our new software last June in the financial software that we implemented came with a new customer portal. We've seen reduced receivables year over year. in almost every month, so people are able to access their bills in a more accessible way, and they're able to pay, or they're more aware of the different ways that they can pay as a result of that new portal. So we're hoping that that is a continued trend moving forward.
Any questions? All good? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the financial report and the June financial forecasts.
I'll make that motion, Rachel.
All right.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, then we have the vouchers that circulated here. I would entertain a motion to authorize payment of those.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our next meeting would be Monday, August 10th. Does that work for everyone? Great. Further topics, questions?
I'd just like to say, Rachel, that discussion today has been great. The reality is the fine line that we are having to walk, which we always
Yep.
have to walk.
Yep.
It's been there for, I don't know how many years at this point, in my service up here on the commission. But between Luke, Matt, things that are brought up, and we didn't even talk about the Power Authority and where the rates are going to go. That's, to us, it's sort of old news because we've already talked about that, but that just adds to the burden, that we have to deal with as far as being responsible to all our customers, all the people that depend on us. And we do a hell of a job, so that we do provide that service, so.
Thank you. Good perspectives.
Yes.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.